It's one development, one theme that's emerged. The other is that politicians say things, no matter how impractical, they make these promises and then they live with the consequences when they're in office. Julia Gillard, prime example at the moment. But is that what Tony Abbott's doing now? He's making these promises on something that he might not be able to deliver on.
He would be dead meat if he does not deliver on this promise. He has campaigned day in, day out.
He might not be able to, is my point.
All he has to do is try.
Well,
no, he's saying more than that. He's saying far more than I'm going to try. He's saying I will do it.
He's saying, and he will, shed blood to do it. And he has left absolutely no wriggle room whatsoever. So if he wasn't to deliver on that, he would be dead meat. And he does have, the double dissolution option, even if it takes, say, 6 months or a year. Or there's still a glimmer of hope in the opposition that if they were to replicate the 2004 Senate result, they might be able to cobble the numbers together with Xenophon and Madigan to knock it off. Now that's, they'd need something between a miracle and a landslide to make that happen. But it's still an option. But one way or another, he has to do it. Otherwise, he's finished. I mean, this whole episode with Gillard has shown what can happen when there's a breakdown of trust between a Prime Minister and the electorate.
That's why I'm surprised you've gone so far out on that limb.
Yeah, and at the very least, he has to be able to restore, or he should try and restore, confidence among voters that politicians will deliver on what they say.
But by taking that stance, then I agree with you that he's gone so far on this issue he can't really do anything else. Now, up to now, it's worked because it's a simple message. Carbon tax bad, no carbon tax good, that's all he's had to say. But as time goes on and more of this plan is enacted and people get into the detail of it, that entirely simple message is going to be harder and harder to sustain, and he's going to be drawn more and more into, so what are you going to do with the compensation? What are you going to do about the tax cuts? What are you going to do about the pension rises? What are you going to do about the Clean Energy Fund or the contracts written with brown coal generators or? And that the advantage of the simplicity is actually going to be a disadvantage of complexity pretty quickly.
He has committed to abolishing the carbon tax and providing tax cuts. No carbon tax with tax cuts. Now, that's a fairly strict discipline that he's imposed on his financial team, and there's no doubt, they're going to have a lot of trouble matching that.
Sure will.
But,
but at the moment,
it is going to get complicated, but any tax can be unravelled.
But at the moment,
by a government, but they have to be able to wear.
Just on that, Martin Parkinson, the
consequences.
head of Treasury, was asked about that. How would you feel as head of Treasury if a new government asked you to dismantle the tax? And this is what he had to say.
Everybody has a choice in front of them. If they don't, if they're not prepared to implement the policies that the government chooses to pursue, that government's been democratically elected, then they essentially have to make a choice with their feet.
Was he implying there that Tony Abbott might have to find a new head of Treasury to do the job?
Well, you could read it that way. I mean, I think Martin Parkinson's had an enormous amount invested in this policy. He's worked on emissions trading plans for 3 Prime Ministers, for John Howard, for Kevin Rudd and for Julia Gillard. He may well find it quite hard to implement a plan of picking it all apart.
But Martin Parkinson has waited a long time and worked very hard to get to where he is now as head of Treasury. It's the job he's always wanted. So he would have to weigh things up very carefully about whether he was prepared to walk away from it on this basis.